Wonderful. My name is Renee Hatcher. I am the director of the Community Enterprise and Solidarity Economy Clinic at UIC John Marshall Law School. And essentially what we do here at the clinic is provide free legal support to small businesses, community-based businesses, nonprofits, and other organizations or initiatives that are improving their community or doing equitable development work. As a part of that work, we've been working with social equity clients in the cannabis industry. As you may know, the cannabis was recently legalized. Recreational cannabis was recently legalized here in the state of Illinois. And within that came a number of provisions in that specific law that allowed for social equity clients, individuals who had been harmed by the war on drugs, to take advantage of different opportunities, economic business opportunities in the cannabis industry. So today we want to continue with some of the community information and education that we've been doing around the social equity aspects of the Cannabis Legalization Act, to talk about essentially some new businesses that recently came online. There are 3 new licenses that are now available through the state of Illinois for 3 new types of cannabis businesses, one being the craft grower business, the second being the infuser business, and finally the transporter business. And so we have prepared this webinar presentation as a part of educating individuals who might be interested in taking advantage of those specific business types within the cannabis industry and want to talk a little bit about the different requirements to actually receive a license for one of those types of businesses. The other thing I want to say is, like, in terms of the work that we do here at the clinic, again, our services are pro bono. We have a limited capacity based off of how many students, for example, that we have in a particular semester. And so we take on a limited number of clients each semester. If you are interested in our services, you can submit an intake application and there will be contact information at the end of the webinar. But then also, just to make sure that people are clear about the kinds of services that we provide legal support. And so we help businesses, for example, structure their business entity, draft their governance documents, structure different kinds of contractual business relationships. For example, if you need a security contract with your security contractor as a cannabis business, that's something that we could review, something we could potentially draft. What we do not do is actually review for the substance of a license application. While we do help on a number of aspects that go into that application, we don't necessarily actually just simply review applications. The other thing that you should know, please feel free again to reach out to us. We accept clients only twice a year. Once at the very beginning of the year in January sometime. So right now we're working with a string of new businesses, many of which are social equity cannabis businesses. But the next time we'll be accepting new clients likely will not be until August. We are, as a part of the law school, we run on the academic calendar, and so we accept clients twice a year with the beginning of each new semester. So with that, we'll be conducting a number of workshops, community workshops around these new 3 business opportunities within the cannabis industry in the months to come. Please look out for information of those. We'll be partnering with DCEO and a number of community partners to do those workshops and really try to get as much information to folks. But with that, I want to turn it over to our presenters today and let them introduce themselves and actually get into the presentation. Great. Andres and Zach, take it over.
Hello, my name is Andres Gallegos.
My name is Zachary Bride.
And as Professor Hatcher introduced us, we will be presenting on the 3 new licenses that recently were rolled out by the state of Illinois. So today, as previously discussed, our roadmap, we will go over the state's finding that led to the new legalization of recreational cannabis. We will go over the 3 new licenses, which are the craft grower license, infuser, and transporter's license. We'll discuss what they are, who can apply for a license, and how they're scored. Then I'll turn it over to Zach, and he will discuss the license application requirements, and the social equity applicant who qualifies and what the state considers to be disproportionately impacted persons and areas. So, effective 1/1/2020, the prohibition of recreational cannabis ended as a recognition of the negative impacts of the war on drugs to thousands of individuals, families, and whole communities for decades. Those consequences affected difficulty in people finding jobs, financial hardship, poor health, and other housing issues. In legalizing cannabis recreationally, Illinois wanted to prioritize efforts in correcting some of those past injustices, especially for low-level offenders. To that point, the state will expunge certain cannabis-related offenses, and also Illinois will promote business ownership in this new industry for people who were impacted the most by the enforcement of prior laws. To accomplish that, Illinois created the Social Equity Program, which we will discuss in more detail later in this presentation. And that offers financial assistance for license applications and benefits to people that, again, were the most impacted by the former laws. So turning to the first license, we will discuss the craft grower license. A craft grower is simply an individual or entity that grows cannabis, the actual flower, and they grow on a smaller output than commercial cultivators. Anyone can apply for a license. License applications and forms are available on the Illinois Department of Agriculture or IDOA website, and they're due between February 14th and March 16th of 2020. Up to 40 licenses will be awarded on or before July 1st, 2020, an additional 60 by December 21st, 2021. Application fees, there's a cost just to apply for a license, and it's non-refundable. For non-social equity applicants, they must submit $5,000 in the non-refundable fee, and social equity applicants pay a reduced amount of $2,500. Once you're approved, or if you were approved for a license, it's $40,000 to purchase the license, and social equity applicants again pay a reduced amount of $20,000. Licenses will be distributed statewide, and there are not any restrictions for region or district. Scoring of craft grower applications will be done by the Department of Agriculture, and they will be scored out of a total of 1,000 points using the following scale. Suitability of the proposed facility receives 75 points. Suitability of employee training receives 50 points. Security plan and record keeping receives 145 points. A cultivation plan is worth 75. Product safety and labeling plan, 95 points. Business plan and services to be offered is 110. Status as a social equity applicant is worth an extra 200 points. Labor and employment practices is worth 20. So is an environmental plan. Illinois owners receive 90 points. If you are a veteran, you receive 20 points. And diversity plans are worth 100. Next, we'll turn to cannabis infuser licenses. Cannabis infusers are facilities that mix cannabis concentrate into products that make it a cannabis infused product. Those products include edibles, smokable concentrates, tinctures, vaporizers, and etc. Again, anyone can apply for an infuser license, and they're available on the IDOA website between February 14th and March 16th. Just like the craft grower license, up to 40 will be awarded before July 1st and an additional 60 by December 21st, 2021. The fees are the same as craft growers. A non-social equity applicant must pay $5,000 and a non-refundable fee, and social equity applicants pay the reduced amount of $2,500. If the infuser license is approved, it costs $5,000 to purchase the license, and again, social equity applicants pay a reduced cost of $2,500. And just like cannabis craft grower license, they're distributed statewide. The scoring of applications are done by the IDOA. They're out of 1,000 points, and the point allotment is the same as craft growers, which we previously just ran through. Now we'll turn to transporter licenses. Transporters simply are an individual or a business that is licensed to transport cannabis. Anyone can apply for a transporter license, and they're due on February 14th through March 16th and can be found on the IDOA websites. Licenses will be awarded on or before July 1st. And unlike the Infuser and craft grower license, there is no limit to how many licenses will be issued. Any applicant who meets all the requirements and scores at least 75% of the available points will be issued a license. The application fee is $5,000. Again, that's not refundable. And social equity applicants will pay a reduced amount of $2,500. If awarded, the license actual cost is $10,000, and social equity applicants pay reduced $5,000. Like similar to the other two licenses, again, there's statewide distribution and it's not restricted by region or district. The scoring of transporter licenses is slightly different than the other two we just went over. They are done by the IDOA and are out of 1,000 points, but the scale is different. Business plan is worth 180 points. The suitability of employee training is worth 160. Security and record keeping plans are worth 200. Status for social equity applicant is worth an additional 200. Labor and employment practices are worth 20. Environmental plan is also worth 20. If the transporter business is controlled or owned by an Illinois resident, that's 100 points. As a veteran is an additional 20, and the diversity plan is worth 100. Now I will turn it over to Zach for application requirements.
Thanks, Andres. So one of the first application requirements you're going to have to face is a business entity. Applicants must have a business entity that is recognized by the state of Illinois in order to apply for a craft grower, infuser, or transporter license. Some of the common business entities are corporations, limited liability companies, or LLCs, cooperative corporations, and new limited worker cooperative associations. All of these entities have their own requirements to form and documents required to file with the state, and each allows for a different level of flexibility in its structure and management. Here you'll see a comparison chart of the different types of entities. You can see the minimum numbers of members that's required for each entity, the management style that goes along with each entity, the formation documents that are required, as well as the governing documents, and then the allowable owners of the business, as well as the limited liability for those owners. Here we've provided a detailed list of what's required. We've separated the craft growers and infusers from the transporters. The craft growers and infusers, as we've mentioned, have the same requirements, and transporters have a slightly different set of requirements. For example, transporters aren't required to provide a proposed facility or a cultivation or infusion plan because it doesn't apply to them. Next, we've gone over the business operating and financials that are required for each application. First, you have a business plan, which is essentially a snapshot of your business. Next would be your operating plan, which is going to describe the nuts and bolts and what you'll do on a day-to-day operation and successful business. Lastly, there's the financial plan. Those documents are going to include financial projections for your business, including a few standard projection statements. So as we said, the business plan is one of the items that's required. Business plans have a company description, a description of the products and services, an operational plan, management and organization plan, as well as marketing or a financial plan, and then an executive summary, which we've provided a few of the examples that are included in that summary typically. Next, you have the operating plan. And like I said, it's the nuts and bolts of your business and how you're going to operate on a day-to-day basis. That operating plan should include details about the following, including your personnel or employees, your suppliers information, inventory, distribution, equipment, processes, and then any legal requirements. Your financial plan, once again, it's going to detail your startup expenses. It's going to have a balance sheet for your opening day, your personal financial statements, a profit and loss statement, cash flow projections, a projected balance sheet, and then break-even calculations and your initial capital projections. An applicant need only provide a statement demonstrating that the applicant will have access to sufficient funds to own and operate a craft grow, infuser, or transport business if they're awarded a license. And then documentation can be provided, but it is not required. A principal officer for your business is someone who is a board member, a 1% owner, or if it's a publicly traded company, a 5% owner, an officer, partner, or member, financially interested person, a person with control in a management role, or a person who assumes debt in the business. This person must be 21 years old and have no outstanding taxes in the state of Illinois. And then fingerprint consent forms are also required to be submitted with the application. All licenses require a security and record keeping plan. Applicants must submit a contract with a private security contractor that is licensed under Section 10.5 of the Private Detection, Private Alarm, Private Security, Fingerprint Vendor, and Locksmith Act of 2004. Craft growers and infusers only must provide a plan for a security guard to be on site during operating hours. And then all applications should have video surveillance cameras and extensive alarm system. The following records also must be maintained electronically. In your operating procedures, your inventory records and procedures, security records, audit records, staffing plan, and your business records. The community engagement plan is a plan where an applicant may demonstrate a desire to engage with its community by participating in one or more of the following. You can create an incubator program designed to increase participation of social equity applicants in the cannabis industry. You can provide financial assistance to substance abuse treatment centers. You can educate children and teens about the potential harms of cannabis use or other actions that would demonstrate a commitment to the community. The community engagement plan is only scored in the event of a tie between two applicants in the same region, though. Next, you have your labor and employment plan. This may include a code of conduct, an employer-provided health benefits, employer-provided educational benefits or retirement benefits, a commitment to provide a living wage, or a specific verifiable employee benefit other than those identified above that the applicant will provide to its employees. Next, we're going to go over the social equity applicant requirements. So the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act gives additional points in the license application scoring specifically for social equity applicants. The Act establishes a program for these applicants who meet the following criteria. First, you must be an Illinois resident. Second, you either have to have at least 51% ownership and controlled by one or more individuals, or the other option, if you're a company, to have more than 10 full-time employees and at least 51% of those employees would then reside in the disproportionately impacted area, have been arrested or convicted of a low-level cannabis crime, or have a parent, child, or spouse who has been convicted or arrested of a low-level cannabis-related crime. As we mentioned, a disproportionately impacted area, there are census tracts or comparable geographic areas that have high rates of arrest or conviction of a low-level cannabis-related crime. Neighborhoods that fit this would be Inglewood, South Shore, Brookdale, Woodlawn, Bronzeville, and then there's many more. And if you're not sure where they are, we've provided a link where you can check on the DC website to see where exactly those disproportionately impacted areas are in the state. To provide, you're required to provide evidence to show that you are a social equity applicant. You can do this by submitting the following items with your application. First would be evidence of Illinois residency. There's several items that you can provide that show that, include a signed lease, a paycheck stub, a driver's license, or some tax records. And then businesses or organizations must submit their incorporation documents that were filed with the state of Illinois. On top of that, evidence the applicant lived in a disproportionately impacted area is by submitting tax filings, voter registration, signed leases, mortgage paycheck stubs, utility bills, insurance forms, or school, a court record of an arrest or conviction for any offense eligible for expungement, evidence of the relationship between the applicant's principal officer or officers and the person who is arrested or convicted of a low-level cannabis crime. Lastly, evidence that the applicant employs 10 or more full-time employees, and evidence that 51% or more of those employees meet the criteria of the disproportionately impacted area, have been arrested or convicted, or a family member who is impacted. There's also support and services provided through the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity for social equity applicants. One thing that's being provided is social equity applicants who qualify are receiving an additional 200 points out of the possible 1,000 on their license application. Furthermore, they're getting 50% reduction in all license costs or application fees. Lastly, there's access to low interest loans for starting and operating a cannabis related business. These loans have their own qualifications and criteria to be met. These recipients will be required to demonstrate on a quarterly basis they're continuing to operate a viable business. The loans are also non-transferable, and failure to comply with these requirements and to retain a current license will force an applicant to pay back the loan they've received. Lastly, we've gone over several types of businesses that do require a license. We also wanted to highlight that there are several types of businesses that don't. Some of these include marketing, packaging, software, or security solutions. And these are just some other options out there that people can profit from the new legislation and growing industry. And then we've also included forms and resources that we hope people can turn to if they have a question or need any sort of assistance. And that is it. Thank you so much for tuning in. This was UIC John Marshall Law School Community Enterprise and Solidarity Economy Clinic's webinar on infusers, craft growers, and transporters. We hope you enjoyed it.